S832.5, CSX's gateway to the Bone Valley, branching out of their S-line here at Valrico Junction. Two subdivisions meet here, the Yeoman sub heading north out of Tampa, and the Valrico sub running into the Bone Valley, ending all the way in Fort Meade south of Bartow. Hello again, rail fans. Welcome back to Central Florida for another day trackside. Today we'll be exploring the Bone Valley, seeing what we can find on this warm Wednesday in May. First hit is right here at Valrico, as B311 heads south with empty flip-top phosphate hoppers coming from Rockport Yard in Tampa to Ridgewood for another load. Going on duty at 0500, B311 would bring this train of empties back into the Bone Valley, getting track authority from here at Valrico all the way to Ridgewood. With State Road 60 being a direct route to Mulberry, we'd leapfrog the train, pulling off just west of town. This is North End IMC, a commonly heard spot on the radio down here, as it's the beginning of signal territory on the Valrico sub for trains heading eastbound, like our B311. A high green would await B311 here, as another train would enter the siding from Mulberry Yard. IMC is the name of the siding that the Mulberry Yard leads and Y branch out of, making it a good spot to meet short phosphate trains on busy days. Without any signals called or distant horn, B311 would sneak up on us, taking me and my camera by surprise as it focused on the grass in the foreground. While it does look cool, it's not ideal. Oh well. While B311's 3,000 feet of empties would pass, the dispatcher would line B371 out of the yard in Mulberry and into the siding here at IMC. The set of engines would be heading to New Wales to pick up a loaded train of wet rock phosphate for Mosaic's Fort Meade plant. From IMC, B371 would have to travel west on the Valrico sub to Edison, where he'll turn south to New Wales on the Brewster sub. However, another train, B339, would be using that same Brewster sub on its northbound trip from Agrock to Tampa. So hearing him give up authority to New Wales, we'd jump over to Edison, where 339 would be turning onto the Valrico sub northbound. Today's B339 would be transporting more wet rock phosphate loads to East Tampa, another Mosaic plant and port, located on Tampa Bay next to the Alafaya River. Since the majority of trackage in the Bone Valley is dark, non-signal territory, trains use EC1s to get permission to operate on the sections of track. Since B339 had an EC1 from New Wales to Valrico, B371 was unable to move until he got an EC1 of his own, only possible when 339 gave his up. So back to IMC we'd go, as B371 got his own EC1 and departed for New Wales.
371-31 answering, over. Anyways, let's see, I'll get y'all rolling here. Y'all are on the 5416 Kelly at the SVA 40.5, is that right?
With the morning rush slowing down for now, we'd head into Mulberry where the old SAL and ACL signals still stand, like these guarding South End IMC, and these protecting the interlocking at Mulberry. With Y-pattern signals still in use on the Bone Valley sub, the old Seaboard color light signals still stand after more than 50 years of hard work. The Valrico sub has most of these old signals, with 3 at South End IMC, 2 here at Mulberry, and a handful more at the Y and Ridgewood Spur. Earlier this year, we rail fans got word that these signals were on borrowed time as CSX plans to replace all of these old soldiers in the coming months. It was nice to see them still standing in May 2023, but they won't be here much longer as new Safe Train signals are ready and waiting in Mulberry Yard to replace them. After lunch at Mulberry, we drift east to Ridgewood, where another old signal stands as an intermediate signal to Mosaic's Ridgewood plant and siding to the east and the South Mulberry Y to the west, where the Aiken sub begins. We'd set up here as we knew of 3 trains needing to use this single-track sub between IMC and Ridgewood. First up would be that B371 from earlier, now returning from New Wales with a loaded train for Fort Meade. That B311 we chased earlier would also be ready to go, out of his stop in Ridgewood, now with a loaded train for Rockport. Finally leaving Fort Meade would be W001, an inspection train out of Tampa, today touring the Bone Valley. The first move would be to put W001 into the small and rarely used Clear Springs Pass track to clear up for B371 coming south. With B311 in the hold at Ridgewood, 371 would have the line to continue south. And in a couple minutes, here he came with 3,900 feet of freshly mined wet rock loads.
Ridgewood to Rockport, we're ready over.
It's going to be a few minutes. I got B37131 leaving New Wales to go to Fort Meade. Whenever he gets by, y'all give me a shout. I should be able to get y'all headed that way.
Okay. I guess we'll just stay right here, I guess.
All right, I'll give you a shout whenever B371 gets by, y'all.
As you might have heard in that radio conversation, B311 would be next, with signals to depart Ridgewood once B371 was passed. We'd hop down to the Mulberry Diamond again, as I wanted to see the old signals in use, and had a shot in mind for a westbound on the Valrico sub. L770, the Mulberry area local, would be in the hold at IMC for this guy, as 311 had track authority all the way back to Valrico. While waiting at the Diamond, I noticed this curiosity, an old trackside bungalow with a long abandoned platform. At one point, these used to be all over the Bone Valley as small freight houses for anything, from mail to a few packages off a boxcar. At one point, all these lines connected small towns, carrying passengers to and fro. Oh, if only I had a time machine. As the storm clouds darkened the sky, a clear signal would be lit for B311, now rounding the corner with 2 clean CM44 ACs leading the way. B311's 2,900 feet of train would take about 7 minutes to cross the Diamond at a very slow 10 miles per hour. At one point, trains could pass here at a quicker pace, but CSX has lowered the speed limit, most likely to avoid maintenance costs. To motorists, it's just a train traveling very slowly, blocking the main road. At 2 p.m. on this Wednesday, 311 created quite the traffic jam in the small town. Right next to the Diamond, at the corner of Church Avenue and 1st Street, is the Mulberry Phosphate Museum, owned and operated in the old Seaboard Airline Mulberry Depot. The museum hosts a plethora of exhibits sharing the history and importance of the Bone Valley. It's also an advertisement. See that perfectly green and healthy grass? Grown with Floridian phosphate fertilizer, mined just down the road. After both B371 and 311 were out of the way, W00131, the geometry train, finally got a signal to head west, tripping the Bartow defect detector 5 miles east of us.
CSX detector milestone 850.4, no defect, repeat, no defect, total axle 18, detector out.
This slow clear indication lit on the south leg of the Mulberry Y is telling W001 to proceed until the entire train clears the switch at limited speed, 15 miles per hour. At 15:20, W001 would round the corner, shoving 3 cars with CSX's 6-axle inspection car on the rear. I'm not entirely sure what the other 2 passenger cars are needed for, but they do make a cool sight, as CSX's Florence car and Southern Pacific's Birch Grove trail behind CSX 6025, a GP40-2. By far my favorite car on the train is the Birch Grove, built in 1950 by the Budd Company for Southern Pacific. It'd be given to Amtrak, where it operated on cross-country routes until 1995. After falling into disrepair, the car would be refurbished in 2005 until it was bought by the Cincinnati Railway Company, now leased to CSX for its geometry trains. W001 would go down the Aiken sub for the next couple of hours, and with more storm clouds building, we wouldn't follow the train. When we got to Mulberry, another train would surprise us, as L770 backed his train into the yard. 770 is that local that had to wait on B311 at IMC to work the Limehouse, an industry on the Valrico sub in Nichols, just east of Edison. Leaving Mulberry as 770 worked the yard, we'd hear one last train getting an EC1 under the symbol of L769. 769 is the old 0730. A Bone Valley local based out of Winston Yard in Lakeland, today running to New Wales and back, with finished DAP fertilizer and molten sulfur tanks behind. We drive into Nichols, pulling off right next to the post office, where the Nichols Pass track ends and a spur to the long-abandoned IMC Nichols mine starts. You can see the rusty smokestacks off in the distance. The single-head signal here is an approach signal only capable of displaying this yellow aspect, warning the crews of eastbound trains that they are about to enter signal territory, in this case, the signals at North End IMC. Now home to only a few hundred people, Nichols was built around the railroad. While it never had a depot, employees of the mine were paid to live in company houses in the 1950s, slowly building a community around the tracks. When the mine lost its business to Mosaic's massive New Wales facility, the mine shut down in 1996, scattering residents to Mulberry and Edison. Now all that remains is the post office and the Valrico sub, which today is carrying phosphate moves, like this L769, returning to Winston. With the rain clouds beginning to open up, we'd head home, as we still had over an hour drive back. All in all, it was quite the day. It's not too often that we visit the Bone Valley, but today we were treated well, with action all throughout the day. But until we meet again, this is Christian for Multicolor Films. End of transmission.